Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live 10 questions with series during which we sit down with entrepreneurs and business leaders to hear about their journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way with the hopes of imparting advice for all of us in our journeys too. Now, in honor of International Women's Day yesterday and a month-long celebration of women in history all over the globe, we'll be joined today by a super inspirational entrepreneur. Her name is Sarah Flint. She's the CEO, founder, and designer of her namesake shoe company, Sarah Flint. Now, as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and we'll get to them at the end of today's conversation in a live Q&A with Sarah. And make sure you shoot us a little hello or tell us where you're from, where you're tuning in from. We'll definitely give you a shout out right back. Now, without further ado, please join me in a very virtual but warm welcome for Sarah Flint. Hi, Sarah. How are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Kendall. Thank you for having me.
Now, I gave our viewers a little insight into your company, Sarah Flint, but I'd love for you to explain it a bit more in your own words.
Sure. So Sarah Flint is a luxury women's shoe brand that is direct to consumer. And I started the business at the age of 25 because I wanted to make shoes that were both beautiful and comfortable. I didn't think that women should have to sacrifice one for the other.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm excited to dive into that journey with you. So how about we step, saunter, dance, whatever we want into our 10 questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, question number one. I want to start by taking it back before you founded your company to your internships with major brands like Parenza Schooler and Diane von Furstenberg. What did you learn from those opportunities and carry with you into founding Sarah Flint that others who maybe didn't have such experiences can learn from too?
Yeah, I think that what I really learned, particularly from those two brands, they're brands with really, really strong points of view, both aesthetically and in terms of who their customer is. And while they were so different from my personal taste and aesthetic, I think it was, an incredible experience to sort of learn how to sort of flex my style and really understand what makes a brand unique and individual and how they were particularly serving their customer base.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, DVF is definitely up my alley. There's a lot of similarities there between that brand and my personal taste. But so I love it when I found that out about you. That was super exciting. Yeah. Okay, moving into question number two. For our viewers who might not know, you founded Sarah Flint in 2013, as you said, when you were 25 years old. So Sarah, having studied and worked in the industry, what was missing in the world of footwear and what data proved that there was a big enough gap for you to fill by starting your own company?
Yeah, so I mean, it really was just that. There were so many incredible shoe brands, particularly in the luxury space, that were making beautiful, virtuosic, wonderful 115 millimeter stiletto shoes that were great for sort of the runway and, dinner only shoes, sitting only shoes. And and I just felt like, well, this is insane. You should be, if you're paying $800 for a pair of shoes, you should be getting comfort and style at the same time. And, also there was so much emphasis on those kind of like event shoes in particular, and not enough emphasis on the types of shoes that women wear every day. So our best-selling style is a flat, and it always has been. We sell more, 50 millimeter and 85 millimeter heels than we'll ever sell 100 millimeter heels. And, really women should have both. And so that was just a huge opportunity. I saw it both, in my personal life and, and I saw it in doing research.
Now, you decided early on to go direct to consumer to help, kind of give way to some of that overhead cost, some of the costs of going, basically not having to increase your prices by just going through distribution. You were fairly early to that game too, like in general in 2013. Yeah. What are the pros and cons of a business model like this?
So we actually went direct to consumer in 2017. So I started as a wholesale business, selling to Barney's and Bloomingdale's and all of these amazing stores. And that was sort of what I thought that you had to do at that time to be a luxury brand, to get that credibility and to command that price point. And, you know, in 2013, there was Warby Parker and Casper, but there weren't a whole lot of other direct-to-consumer brands that were, you know, really sort of redefining what that balance meant. And I think, you know, as my business began to mature and, you know, I started selling to department stores more and more and specialty stores, I became just increasingly frustrated by the fact that I felt like I ended up serving the buyers instead of the end customer. And the fact that, you know, my shoes were $800. I wasn't buying $800 shoes personally. I was, you know, in my 20s. And, you know, at the same time, I saw the rocket ship growth of these direct to consumer brands. I got feeling a little bit competitive, I have to say. And I just felt like, well, isn't there a huge opportunity to create a true luxury brand that's direct to consumer that sort of combines the best of luxury, which is, you know, that incredible quality, the authentic storytelling, and, you know, the incredibly high lifetime value of your customer, and the best of direct to consumer, which is that relationship with the customer, the fact that you actually own your customer data. When you're selling at department stores, you don't own any of your customer data, which is a huge challenge. And then, of course, you know, all of the things that direct to consumer brands do super well, being digitally optimized, you know, even things like, you know, overnight shipping and all of that.
Yeah. You're able to control all of that, taking that, you know, and going direct to consumer, and while also cutting the, I mean, you wanted, your goal was to be able to sell these shoes to women of all different backgrounds, from, you know, right? All women.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that's great. So according to PitchBook, in 2020, companies founded solely by women garnered just 2.5% of the total capital invested in venture-backed startups in the United States. How did you go about raising capital, and what advice can you impart from that experience?
Yeah, so, you know, initially I did sort of angel investing seed with friends and family, and had a lot of sort of women who had been very successful in their careers come in and really believe in the product and the brand and the white space in the market. And then, you know, from there, I think that honestly, that initial group that I had formed around myself became incredibly valuable in raising capital after that. So, you know, each additional round, I would go to them and, you know, tell them what we were working on, and they would have a friend at this VC firm or that VC firm, and then eventually get in there. But I think that some advice that I would give is to really stay in touch with all of the people that you ever talk to. Make sure that you're continually updating them, sending them sort of, you know, the good news, the press, the, you know, the exciting launches. Keep yourself top of mind with them. But I think, you know, what you're speaking to a little bit is that, you know, it is notoriously challenging, more challenging as a female founder to raise money in the VC world. And I think that, you know, in my experience, that's had more to do with the fact that there are very few female VCs out there to get really passionate about a product that you are starting. And you often do find that women found companies for, you know, spaces in the market where that have typically been ignored.
Right.
And so, you know, I think that there's a horrifying stat that came out in the last year that in 2020 record amounts of venture dollars were raised, but it was at a 3-year low of those dollars going to female founders. And I think that's really hard and upsetting. And we've seen a lot of things in the last year that have not been ideal, particularly for women in the workplace. But I really believe that the key to, you know, getting more venture dollars going to female founded companies is really getting more women in venture.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you're tuning in right now, keep that in mind, especially for all the women that are tuning in. All right, question number 5, Sarah. Your brand captured the attention of women like Meghan Markle, big in the news right now, Blake Lively, and Lady Gaga, to name a few. Without distributors or retail locations, how did you go about building awareness around the brand?
Yeah, so, you know, I think initially we did have those, you know, distributors, which was for sure an advantage to the brand. I would say, having come from the shelves of Barney's, we had garnered a certain amount of sort of prestige and press from the Vogues and the Harper's Bazaars of the world that would have been very, very expensive to acquire as a new direct-to-consumer brand. I think that's for sure, was part of it in the beginning. I think continuing to, create, I know this sounds maybe naive in some ways, but creating a great product and giving your customers reasons to talk about that product and share that product has been really, really big for us. We've always believed in sort of the power of referrals, and have established a number of different sort of programs to enable our customers to really become brand evangelists. Collaborations have been huge for us. There's obviously digital marketing, but I think that, one of the things that we've seen, particularly in the last year, is that, of course, you start to see diminishing returns on digital marketing, and those costs can get really, really high. So what's really important is thinking bigger picture about the brand holistically. Where are your customers and how do you get to them?
Yeah, definitely. I actually saw that you recently collaborated with the American Ballet Theater, right? Yeah. That's awesome. That's such a great initiative. I know, especially with theaters and everything being closed down still, what an awesome opportunity. Good for you.
It's been amazing. We sold out the first week of the ABT flat. So
amazing.
It was really, really exciting and so fun to sort of, tell the stories of some of those dancers.
Yeah, so awesome. Question number 6, the business model and obviously your marketing, everything has worked. Your company has experienced massive growth, which is always a great thing, of course, but can be difficult to navigate. What growing pains have you experienced with Sarah Flint, and what tools have helped you overcome them?
Yeah, I would say particularly at the beginning of the switch to direct to consumer, we underestimated the demand for the product, and so we had massive wait lists up to 35,000 people for particular styles, and it was a number of different things, but things like integrating a wait list feature so that we could capture the customer information and then get back to them when that was back in stock. Putting different sort of processes in place for faster reorder timelines. A number of sort of different things like that.
Yeah, back-end processes.
Exactly, back-end processes. And then just sort of processes around your company and people. I think that when you're growing very quickly, it's very easy to just sort of, put out all of the fires instead of creating processes. To be honest, processes that's not my strong suit. I'm very much, okay, here's the big idea, let's go with it. Now, how do we get there? And I have been able to have an incredible team and brought in actually a CEO in the last year, an amazing woman named Mary Beach, who came from Kate Spade, where she was the CMO for the last 6 years,
wow.
7 years. And Mary has been incredible at sort of looking at the business, at all of the potential and the growth opportunities, and saying, okay, what foundational pieces do we need to be putting in place?
That's great. Question number 7, you talked about some of the styles that, for example, had a 35,000 person wait list. I can only imagine what those styles were. But what data or market research do you use to make decisions around new products? Like, obviously there's some products that do super well. So then how do you use that information to build new products? For example, like, I know you have stationery, you have scarves. Like, so how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of art and science, I would say. Scarves was an interesting one because I had inherited this incredible collection of silk scarves from Hermes silk scarves from my grandmother. Wow. And I would always be, wearing them on Instagram, and our customers would always ask where they could get them. Now, Hermes scarves today are, $600 to $1,600, and very hard to, expensive to get. And so I felt like, that was just such an obvious opportunity for us. We already had relationships with the incredible mills that make silk scarves for the top brands. And we were able to bring it to market at a price point of, like $250, which is just amazing for the quality of what you're getting there. But it wasn't just hey, my customers are asking for this, let's see how we can do it. It was really going out and looking at across the market, what is available in the silk scarf realm, what are contemporary brands offering, what are luxury brands offering, we do a lot of customer surveys, which are always incredibly informative and helpful. Social media is a great tool, of course, because you can preview things and get feedback from people quite quickly. But I think, the most important thing is really speaking with your customer.
That's great. Kind of along those same lines, a big part of your mission is to make women feel empowered and at ease, one pair of shoes at a time. Mm-hmm. So while you have the research to back these new products, you're talking to your customers, you're able to, really figure out what your next move is. How do you create a feeling for customers and ensure that across all of these products, you're always embodying the ethos of your brand?
Yeah. So, there's a physical feeling of comfort, which, we have all kinds of different things like, arch support in the shoes and padding and wider toe boxes and steel rod stilettos and like rubber on the bottom, which I, used to get put on my shoes. And so I didn't want my customers to have to do that. So part of it is sort of a physical feeling, but then part of it is sort of telling other, powerful women's stories. So we have an incredible series called In Her Shoes, where we tell not just our customers' stories, but incredible women, within different industries. Or, for example, like the ABT collaboration we just did, where we got to do some incredible storytelling on 3 of their dancers there. I think it's about sort of hearing what your customer, what's important to her, and adding value.
Yeah, I love how you utilize that blog to tell those stories, but I also love how you use it to tell your own story, to talk about your own personal life. You do that on your Instagram account. What impact do you think this makes? And what can you tell other founders to take away from that, personal connection with your customers that you're making?
Yeah, so I think that was something I didn't anticipate when I started the business. It just, designers were less out front in front of their brands the way they are now, but it's been a huge asset because it's allowed these, organic conversations. I think that, people, as they are with anyone, are looking for authenticity and access. Right. And so it's really about, letting people in and showing them things, whether it be, behind the scenes or sort of creativity, or even, talking about things that you're going through. I think that's been a big part of our success. Even, when I look back to the beginning of COVID and we were trying to figure out, well, first of all, it feels like the world is falling apart around us. How do we keep launching shoes? How do we keep running this business? How do we, talk about fashion in a time where it that feels so frivolous? And what we ended up doing was I sent a very, heartfelt letter to my customer base. I, did the same thing on Instagram and on our social channels and just said, essentially, we're all going through the same thing right now. And this is not, in the grand scheme of things, shoes are not the most important thing, but there are things. And if we can bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of, just really moments of joy to our customer base in this time, that's what we're going to do. And we want to be sensitive to what everyone's going through, to what they're feeling, and we want you to tell us about that. But I think having that come from me as a founder, as someone who is, trying to sustain their business, who has employees that they're taking care of, I think that was that much more meaningful and authentic than it would have been from, HR.
Right. Or just the brand itself. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I mean, even I did some stalking and your wedding blog. I'm like, well, what did she wear? Because I want to know what she, as this massive designer, I want to know what she wore. You trust when you trust a brand, you tend to trust obviously the founders and their decisions, and that's something we actually heard a lot about in COVID too, was a lot of people were looking to the brands that they trusted for information, or like you said, for comfort, for whatever, for that happy moment. So I think, you hit the nail on the head there. All right, we're on question number 10, but if you are tuning in right now, don't forget you can still ask any questions you may have for Sarah or about this topic in general. Go ahead and leave them there in the comments, and don't forget to shout out to us with your hellos. Tell us where you're tuning in from, and we'll definitely shout out to you in a moment here. But for now, question number 10, Sarah, the theme of International Women's Day yesterday was choose to challenge. How does Sarah Flint, both you personally and the company, choose to challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been choosing to challenge since day one, since the day that I walked into those, factories that are used to making these, incredibly painful but beautiful shoes, and said, hey, I want to add, arch support, and I want to create wider toe boxes. And their answer was, you can't do that. That will look too comfortable. That's not luxury. And, I had to kind of say to them, well, that actually is the ultimate luxury, to be comfortable and beautiful. And, it was the same thing when, when I got into the stores. It was kind of like, you have to make these really sexy types of things, or, to get your brand out there. Like, you can't just do these things. And we had to sort of question that. And I think that, something I didn't question early enough, although thank God eventually did in 2017, was the whole wholesale direct-to-consumer piece, because I just assumed if you're a luxury brand, this is how you distribute your product. And that didn't have to be the case. That really, really didn't have to be the case. And so I think that we aim to constantly sort of redefine what it means to be a luxury brand and what that experience looks like, whether it be through our pop-up shops or through the way that we interact and speak with customers.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thank you so much. All right, as noted, that is it for my questions, but I want to open it up to the audience here. We actually have some hellos coming in. Hello from Nigeria. Whoa. Hello from Brazil, from Palestine. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, first question here. Okay, out of curiosity, why did you decide to name the brand Sarah Flint over, other than the obvious, it being your name?
Yeah, I think that it wasn't the obvious decision at first. I think, in conversations with a number of people who were in this industry before, they all felt like, number one, it's a great catchy name. I get that, I guess. And number two, I think that they felt that the brand was such a reflection of my sensibility that it really would be a huge asset.
That's great. You talked about, another question coming in here, you talked about some processes that you've put in place that helped with your growth. How has NetSuite impacted that?
Oh, hugely. I think it's, just down to sort of like the inventory management and order processing. Everything was incredibly manual before. I shudder to think when I look back at the first warehouse that we had and how we were tracking inventory and nothing ever matched up. I think that's been the biggest impact as for sure been the inventory management.
Okay, this is a good one. What's some advice you'd go back and give yourself when you started Sarah Flint?
I think I would tell myself, and I think people did tell me this, and I probably didn't listen, but to sort of, not sort of sweat things as much as I did in the beginning, that I would get through them and that I would be stronger for it, and to sort of really celebrate your achievements, because I think when you're in a high growth company, it's very, very easy to just look at that next mountain that you have to climb instead of actually admiring the view from where you are when you get somewhere. Like, even when I think about, those first stock outs that we had with the shoes when we moved to direct to consumer, I was immediately so freaked out and panicked about how are we going to get the rest of the shoes back? What were we going to say to our customers? All of that type of thing, instead of saying, wow, this is amazing. I was terrified to pull out of these department stores. I didn't know how it was going to work, and we sold out of everything. This is a great problem to have. So
yeah, that's great. I don't know if this is just a go-getter thing or whatever, but I lately have been trying to remind myself, like, be in the moment, Kendall. Like, be happy for where you are right now. Because I think we're constantly looking towards that next milestone. So, we hit this milestone. What's next? And I love that message, Sarah. Just, remember to celebrate where you're at right now, and then you can keep getting, and you can keep going to that next milestone. But celebrate.
I think the last year is an especially good example of that. We need to find the moments and just enjoy them and relish them.
So true, so true. I have goosebumps. So with that, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. This was such a great conversation. I just look forward to all that's to come from Sarah Flint in the future.
Thank you, Kendall, and thank you, everyone.
As always, thank you to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with the CEO of the Chicago Music Exchange, Andrew Yonk. That's happening on Tuesday, March 16th at 11 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you tune in. Be there, be square. We'll see you then.